The evening started out like any other. I had just returned home from the office, tossing my keys onto the kitchen counter as the sounds of Liam and Sophie echoed from the living room. Their laughter was usually the best part of my day. Vanessa, my wife, had texted earlier to say she'd be late again. Another work dinner. These had become frequent, too frequent. I had thought recently, though, I brushed off the idea of anything suspicious. After all, she was a high-powered lawyer in a firm known for taking on massive corporate cases. Long hours came with the territory. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, twisting off the cap as I let out a breath. Work had been rough today, with a client's projects spiraling out of control. Running a home renovation business meant balancing creativity with chaos, and today felt more like the latter. But the moment at home with the kids nearby, brought me some normalcy, something to anchor me. I thought everything in my life was stable. I thought I had it all figured out. But that was before Allison showed up unannounced at my doorstep that night. "Hey, Jason." She greeted me with a tight smile, her hands fidgeting at her sides. Allison, Vanessa's younger sister, had always been close to us, but there was something different in her eyes today. Something heavy, troubled. "Allison, come in. Everything okay?" I asked, stepping aside to let her in. She hesitated for a moment, almost as if she were reconsidering whatever had brought her here. Finally, she walked in, her heels clicking softly on the hardwood floor. I could tell she wasn't here for a casual visit. Her nervousness was palpable, and as I led her to the kitchen, my stomach twisted with an uneasy feeling I couldn't quite place. "Where are the kids?" she asked, glancing around. "With a babysitter. They're playing upstairs," I replied. "Why? What's going on, Allison? You look like you've seen a ghost." She ran a hand through her hair, her eyes darting around as if trying to find the right words. Then, in one breath, it all came out, words tumbling from her lips in a way that sent a cold chill down my spine. "I saw Vanessa's phone, Jason. She's cheating on you." At first, I thought I hadn't heard her right. I just stared at her, waiting for her to take it back or laugh it off, like it was some kind of sick joke. But her face remained stone-cold serious, her eyes filled with something I hadn't seen before, pity, perhaps, or regret. I swallowed hard, trying to steady myself. "What the hell are you talking about?" "It's Ryan King." I recognized his name in her messages. I didn't mean to look at her phone. God, I wasn't trying to invade her privacy. But when I saw the text, "Jason," I had to say something. "She's been seeing him behind your back." Ryan King. That name. I knew him, at least peripherally. He was a real estate developer, someone Vanessa had mentioned a few times in passing when talking about work functions. My mind raced as I tried to piece together the little fragments of information: work dinners, late nights, the growing distance between us. It was as if someone had yanked the floor out from under me. "You're sure about this?" I asked, my voice sounding far more calm than I felt inside. Allison nodded, her expression grim. I didn't want to believe it at first, but I've seen them together. At a hotel, Jason. I went to get coffee after a client meeting, and there they were. "She told you it was a business trip, didn't she?" I gripped the edge of the counter, the room spinning around me. The weight of what she was saying hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just suspicion. This was confirmation. The woman I had built my life with, the mother of my children, had been lying to me, sneaking around behind my back with another man. And it wasn't just anyone. It was Ryan King, a man whose success in real estate put him in our social circles, someone I had seen laughing and shaking hands with at parties. "Jesus Christ," I muttered, rubbing my temples as I tried to absorb it all. I had no idea. I mean, I've noticed things, but I never thought. "You wouldn't," Allison said quietly, her voice softer now. "She's good at hiding it. I'm sorry, Jason. I didn't know how to tell you this, but I couldn't let it go on." I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since she had arrived. There was something in her eyes beyond the guilt, something deeper, almost conflicted. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached out to touch my arm, a gesture meant to comfort me, but it felt off. "Allison," I began, stepping back just enough to shake off her touch. "Why are you telling me this now?" She blinked, seemingly caught off guard by the question. "Because you deserve to know. You're a good man, Jason. You've always been good to her, to everyone. You don't deserve this." I narrowed my eyes, feeling the creeping sense that there was more to this than she was letting on. Have you known about this for a while? She hesitated again. I suspected, but I wasn't sure until recently. Suspected? My voice was harder now, more controlled. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Allison's gaze dropped to the floor, and she crossed her arms defensively. I thought she would stop, Jason. I thought maybe it was just a phase or, I don't know. I didn't want to be the one to blow up your life. But now, everything felt like it was blowing up around me. I took a deep breath, my mind already starting to shift into practical mode. This wasn't something I could sit on or mull over. No, I needed action. All right, I said, pushing back from the counter. I need proof. If I'm going to confront her, I need to know for sure. You're not going to confront her now? Allison asked, surprised by my response. No, y replica firmly. Not yet. I want every card in my hand when I do. I'll handle this my way. The decision came quickly, as if my mind had already made it before I could fully process everything. I needed to protect myself, my kids, my business, and to do that I had to be smart about it. I couldn't afford an emotional outburst, not with Vanessa being a corporate lawyer. She would be ruthless if it came down to a fight, and I needed to be prepared for whatever came next. I'm going to hire a private investigator, I said, my voice resolute. Derek Miles. He's good at what he does, and if there's more to this, he'll find out. Allison nodded, though I could see the tension in her posture. She lingered there for a moment, looking like she wanted to say more, but holding back. Finally, she sighed. If you need anything, Jason, I'm here. I'll help you however I can. Thanks, I said, though I couldn't shake the feeling that her concern had layers I hadn't quite uncovered yet. Something about the way she looked at me, the way she had told me the truth, it didn't sit right. But right now, I had bigger things to deal with. I appreciate it. As I saw Allison out the door, I couldn't help but feel the weight of everything pressing down on me. The laughter of my kids echoed from the upstairs room, innocent and oblivious. How would I protect them from this mess? How could I keep my life from unraveling? The moment the door closed, I took out my phone and dialed Derek Miles. This wasn't going to be pretty, but I'd make damn sure that when I confronted Vanessa, I would have everything I needed to take her down. The phone rang 3 times before Derek picked up. His voice was gruff like gravel scraping across the line. Jason, he acknowledged, no pleasantries. What's the situation? Derek didn't need much explanation. He had handled cases like mine before, too many in fact. Infidelity seemed to be an epidemic these days, infecting marriages left and right. I explained briefly about Vanessa, Ryan, and the details Allison had shared. The man didn't miss a beat, already thinking ahead to what needed to be done. I'll start tonight, Derek said, his tone as matter-of-fact as ever. I'll track her movements, get into the details. If she's seeing this Ryan guy, I'll find out where, when, and how often. We'll have what you need soon. I thanked him, hung up, and stood there for a moment, staring at my phone. The world around me felt like it had shifted into a different gear. Faster, more dangerous. It was surreal. This new reality where the woman I had shared my life with was living a second, secret one. But I wasn't going to let the shock paralyze me. There were things to be done, moves to make. Vanessa might be clever, but I would be smarter. I spent the rest of the evening preparing. I started with our finances. Vanessa and I had shared accounts, investments, a house. All of it intertwined like threads in a web. It would be messy if things blew up, but I was determined to keep control of the situation. I logged into the bank's website, accessing our joint accounts first. A transfer here, a change in authorization there, small, subtle moves. I didn't want to raise any red flags just yet. Vanessa would never see it coming. She had no reason to think I suspected anything. I pulled out my phone again and called Kate. She was the best divorce attorney in town, known for handling high-stakes cases, and I wasn't going to trust anyone else with this. Jason, Kate said when she picked up, what can I do for you? Kate, I think Vanessa's having an affair. I said bluntly, my words coming out with more force than I intended. I need to start protecting my assets. The kids, the business, everything. There was a pause on the other end. I imagined her wheels already turning, calculating every possible move, just like I was. I'm sorry to hear that, Kate said, her voice sympathetic but firm. You're doing the right thing by coming to me early. Here's what we'll do. First, secure your business. Move as much as you can into separate accounts. Make sure Vanessa has no legal access to your core assets. As for the kids, if it comes down to custody, we'll need to build a strong case. It won't be easy, but if you've got evidence of the affair, it'll help. I've got a PI on it already, I replied. I should have something concrete soon. Good, Kate said. The sooner we have that, the stronger your position will be. I'll also need you to start documenting everything. Her movements, spending, any irregularities. I don't want any surprises when we get to court. After we finished, I hung up the phone feeling more in control. The next steps were clear. It was all about execution now. The ball was rolling, and I wasn't going to stop until I had everything lined up perfectly. A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Allison. Hey, she said softly, stepping inside before I could say anything. I just wanted to check on you. How are you holding up? Her presence felt different now, like she was more involved than she should be. I couldn't shake the feeling that her concern was deeper than just sisterly support. But I wasn't ready to confront that, not yet. There were bigger issues at play. I'm fine, I said, though the edge in my voice betrayed me. I called a private investigator. He's starting tonight. Allison raised an eyebrow. That was quick. I'm not wasting time, Allison. This has to be handled carefully, and I need all the proof I can get. She nodded, her expression hard to read. I get it. Look, Jason, I know this is none of my business, but if you need help with anything, let me know. I know Vanessa's habits, her routine. I can help you figure out what she's hiding. I studied her for a moment. Her offer seemed genuine, but there was something about the way she said it, the way her eyes lingered on me a little too long. It wasn't just concern. There was something else. I brushed it off for now, not wanting to dive into that pool just yet. I appreciate it, I said, keeping my voice steady. I might take you up on that. She stepped closer, her hand grazing my arm as she spoke again, her tone soft. You don't deserve this, Jason. You've always been good to her, to the kids. She's the one who's throwing it all away. I swallowed hard, feeling the tension in the air shift. Thanks, Allison. I'll be fine. Her eyes lingered a moment longer before she sighed, stepping back. Okay, just remember, I'm here if you need me. She left after that, and I couldn't shake the feeling that things were getting more complicated than I had anticipated. Not just with Vanessa, but with Allison too. Still, I pushed those thoughts aside. I had more important things to focus on. The next day, I went into the office as usual, keeping everything on the surface as normal as possible. But underneath, I was already plotting my moves. The meeting with Kate was still fresh in my mind. It wasn't just about winning this divorce. It was about doing it cleanly, efficiently, without letting Vanessa take everything I had built. I spent the afternoon on the phone, moving assets, transferring ownerships, making sure every penny was accounted for and protected. Vanessa wouldn't get her hands on any of it. Mid-afternoon, Derek called. I've got something, he said. Your wife met with Ryan today, a lunch meeting. Fancy place downtown. They didn't hide much, Jason. I've got photos. A surge of anger shot through me, but I kept it under control. Send them to me. Will do. I'll keep tailing them, see if they slip up more. But you've got what you need to start. Good? Keep going, Derek. I need more. I want to know everything. I hung up and stared at the wall for a moment, letting it all sink in. The reality of the situation was crystal clear now. Vanessa wasn't just cheating. She was flaunting it, bold enough to meet this guy in public. I knew her. I knew she thought she was untouchable, that she could get away with anything. But she didn't know what was coming. Not yet. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Allison. She texted, asking if we could meet later. She mentioned something about helping with the legal stuff, but I had a feeling that wasn't the only reason she wanted to see me. I wasn't sure how to feel about that. Things were shifting fast, and not in the way I had expected. Vanessa's betrayal was only part of the puzzle now. Allison was becoming more involved, more attached, and that added a whole new level of complication I hadn't anticipated. I texted back, agreeing to meet her later. Whatever this was between us, it needed to be handled carefully. There were too many moving parts, too many risks. But one thing was certain. Vanessa's days of deceit were numbered. I sat at the dining room table, waiting for her. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, the minutes dragging by like they were pulling something heavy. Vanessa would be home soon. Derek had sent me everything I needed. Photos of her and Ryan entering hotels, meeting for lunch, even a late-night rendezvous outside the city. I had the proof. But that wasn't what I wanted anymore. I wanted an answer. Why? What had I done? What had gone wrong that pushed her into this? The door opened, and I heard the soft click of Vanessa's heels on the hardwood floor. The sound was so familiar, yet now it grated against my nerves. She walked in, unaware of what awaited her. She looked at me and smiled, but there was something behind her eyes, something cold, distant. "Hey, you're home early," she said, setting her bag down by the kitchen counter. She glanced at me, her smile wavering when she saw the expression on my face. Is something wrong? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I stood up slowly and walked over to the counter. The envelope Derek had sent me was heavy in my hands, the weight of it a reminder of everything I'd been holding in. I slapped it down on the counter between us. "What's this?" Vanessa asked, her smile gone, replaced by a cautious look. I stayed silent, watching her. She reached for the envelope, her fingers hesitating just before touching it. Finally, she opened it and pulled out the photos one by one. The first was a shot of her and Ryan at a fancy hotel, laughing as they walked inside. The next one showed them seated at a private table for two, their faces close, intimate. And the last one, the one that made my blood boil, was of them leaving the hotel the following morning. Her hand trembled as she held the pictures, her face draining of color. For a moment, she just stared at them, unable to form words. Then, she looked up at me, and I saw the fear in her eyes. "Jason, it's not," she began, but I cut her off. "Don't," I said, my voice steady. "Don't lie to me. I want the truth. All of it. Right now." She hesitated, her eyes darting back to the photos as if she could somehow make them disappear. "Jason, you don't understand. This isn't what it looks like. Isn't it?" I shot back, my patience already wearing thin. "Then explain. Tell me, what the hell is it if not what it looks like? And don't insult me by pretending you were meeting him for business." Vanessa opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her mind was scrambling. I could see that. She hadn't expected this confrontation, hadn't prepared her excuses. But she was quick, always had been. The wheels were turning, trying to find a way out. "It was nothing," she finally said, her voice soft, pleading. "It was just a mistake. It didn't mean anything. Jason, please, let's not blow this up." "You stay here, incredulous. A mistake? You don't accidentally meet someone at a hotel for a weekend." "This wasn't a mistake, Vanessa. This was a choice. Over and over again. And you're still lying to me." She stepped toward me, her face changing, less defensive, more vulnerable. "I'm sorry," she whispered, reaching out to touch my arm. "I know I hurt you. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I've just been feeling so alone, Jason. You've been working late. You've been distant." I laughed, the sound harsh and cold. "So this is my fault now? You're blaming me for your affair?" "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "That's not what I mean. It's just, we've been drifting apart, haven't we? We don't talk like we used to. We don't spend time together. I thought you didn't care anymore." "So, your solution was to find someone else?" I asked, my voice rising. "To run around behind my back with him? Do you really think that justifies what you've done?" Vanessa took another step closer, her hand still on my arm, her fingers curling around it. "Jason, I'm so sorry. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. Please, we can work through this together." I pulled my arm away, staring at her with a coldness I didn't know I was capable of. "Fix it? How do you suggest we fix this, Vanessa? How do you suggest we undo the lies, the betrayal?" She stepped even closer, her body brushing against mine, her voice softening, almost seductive. "We can start over," she whispered, her breath warm against my skin. "I still love you, Jason. I made a mistake, but it doesn't have to end like this." And then, to my utter disbelief, she leaned in, her lips grazing my neck. "Let me make it up to you," she whispered, her hand sliding down my chest. I stood frozen for a moment, not because I was tempted, but because I couldn't believe she thought this would work. That after everything, she thought she could use sex to erase what she had done, as if her body could fix the damage she had caused. "Stop," I said, pushing her away firmly. Just stop. Vanessa blinked, taken aback by the force in my voice. She stepped back, her face flushing with embarrassment, but she quickly recovered. Jason, please, she tried again, her tone now desperate. We can fix this. I'll cut it off with Ryan. I'll do whatever you want. I'll leave my job. I'll spend more time at home. We can make this work. Cut it off with Ryan? I repeated, my voice dripping with disdain. You think that's enough? Do you really believe I want to stay in a marriage built on lies? Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to be manipulated by her anymore. I gave you everything, Vanessa. I trusted you, and you threw it all away for him. Her tears spilled over now, running down her cheeks, but I remained unmoved. Jason, I'm sorry, she sobbed. Please, don't end this. We have the kids, our life together. It doesn't have to be over. I shook my head, the finality of it all crashing over me. It was over the moment you decided to lie to me. I just didn't know it until now. Vanessa stood there, her face a mess of tears and desperation, but I had already made up my mind. She could cry, she could beg, she could offer me anything, but none of it mattered anymore. There was no going back. You need to leave, I said, my voice calm, steady. Go stay with your sister or a friend. I don't care where, but I don't want you here tonight. She stared at me, her mouth opening as if to argue, but she must have seen something in my eyes, something that told her I wasn't going to budge. Without another word, she turned and left the room, her footsteps fading as she retreated up the stairs. I stood there, the silence settling around me like a heavy weight. I had done it. I had confronted her, seen through her lies, and now there was no turning back. It was late in the afternoon when Allison called. Her voice was calm, almost businesslike, as she explained that she had something important to show me, documents related to Vanessa's legal dealings, something she said would help with the divorce. I wasn't sure why she had access to anything like that, but she was persuasive. She said it could be critical in securing my assets and weakening Vanessa's position in the settlement. I had been on edge ever since the confrontation with Vanessa the night before, so I figured anything that could give me an advantage was worth checking out. Just come by my place. I'll explain everything, she said. There was something in her tone that felt off, but I chalked it up to the tension between us all. This situation was a mess, and no one was coming out clean. All right, I'll be there soon, I said. The drive to Allison's place was quiet. Too quiet. My mind raced through everything that had happened in the past few days. The confrontation with Vanessa had left me with a bitter resolve. Her tears, her apologies, and the way she tried to seduce her way out of it. It all played on a loop in my head. It was like I was reliving the betrayal every time I closed my eyes. When I pulled into Allison's driveway, the sun had already begun to set, casting long shadows across the lawn. Her house was quiet, the windows dark except for a light upstairs. I rang the doorbell, waiting for her to answer, feeling that strange unease I hadn't been able to shake all day. The door opened, and there she was, smiling at me like nothing was wrong. Come in, she said, her voice soft. I stepped inside, the door closing with a faint click behind me. Where are the documents? I asked, keeping things as direct as possible. I didn't have time for small talk. They're upstairs, she said, gesturing toward the staircase. I wasn't sure if you'd want to go over them here or take them with you, but I figured we'd have a little privacy up there. I hesitated. Why upstairs? Allison shrugged. The papers are spread out on my desk. Trust me, it'll be easier to go over everything there. Something about this wasn't sitting right, but I followed her up the stairs anyway, my mind focused on the task at hand. She led me down the hallway to her bedroom. The door was open, but the lights inside were dim. I stepped inside, expecting to see papers laid out on a desk like she had said. But there were no papers. Instead, Allison was standing behind me, the door now closed. I turned around just in time to see her drop the thin robe she was wearing, revealing her naked body underneath. What the hell, Allison? I blurted out, taking a step back, completely thrown off balance. This wasn't the Allison I thought I knew. This wasn't anything I had expected. Her expression didn't waver. She walked slowly toward me, her eyes locked on mine, not a hint of shame in her voice. I've wanted you for years, Jason, she said softly, her tone dripping with desire. Even when Vanessa was with you, I wanted you. And now that she's ruined everything, I thought, why not? I felt the room spin, the air thick with tension I didn't want. Are you out of your goddamn mind? I snapped, taking another step back as she moved closer. What the hell is wrong with you? Allison stopped, tilting her head slightly, as if she couldn't understand why I was reacting this way. Don't act like you don't feel it too, she whispered. I know you do. Vanessa doesn't deserve you. She never has. I've been here for you, Jason. I've always been here. My mind was reeling. All the late-night texts, the time she showed up unexpectedly, the way she had been offering to help, it all clicked into place. She wasn't just supporting me through the divorce. She had been angling for this, waiting for her moment. I had been blind to it, too focused on Vanessa's betrayal to notice Allison's intentions. Put your clothes back on, I said coldly, anger bubbling up inside me. I don't know what you think is going on here, but you're way out of line. Her face fell, her eyes narrowing as she realized I wasn't going to give in. Jason, come on, she said, her voice low and sultry. You deserve to feel good again. You deserve better than her. I said, put your clothes back on. I repeated, my voice hard now. I'm not doing this. Not with you. Allison's expression changed in an instant. Her seduction turned to something darker, something desperate. After everything I've done for you? After all the times I've helped you, been there for you? She hissed, her eyes flashing with anger. You're really going to throw me away like that? I stepped back, my heart pounding in my chest. Throw you away? What the hell are you talking about? You're Vanessa's sister, Allison. This is insane. She glared at me, her face twisted with frustration. You don't get it, do you? She's the one who threw you away. She's the one who destroyed everything you had together. I've been waiting for you to see me, Jason. I've been waiting for my chance. And now that you're free, you still want to cling to the ruins she left behind. I shook my head, completely disgusted. This was never about helping me, was it? You were just waiting for your moment, hoping I'd fall apart enough to fall into bed with you. Allison didn't say anything for a moment, the tension thick between us. Her breath came in shallow gasps, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and desperation. You don't get it, she said quietly, her voice suddenly fragile. I love you, Jason. I've always loved you. I had heard enough. Without another word, I turned on my heel and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind me. The sound echoed through the house, but I didn't care. I couldn't believe how deep the betrayal went. Not just Vanessa's, but now Allison's as well. I had thought she was someone I could trust, someone who was on my side. But she was just as twisted as her sister, only in a different way. I reached the front door, my hands trembling with a mixture of rage and disbelief. I yanked it open, stepping out into the cool night air. I couldn't breathe inside that house. I couldn't stand the thought of being anywhere near her right now. As I got into my car, my mind was already racing. I couldn't trust Allison anymore. That much was clear. And if she had tried this, what else had she been hiding? What else had she been doing behind my back? The thought of her still lurking around in my life, trying to manipulate me, made my skin crawl. I had to cut her off completely. But there was something else, something darker, growing in the back of my mind. Allison had crossed the line, and I wasn't going to let her off that easily. The messages started coming the morning after that twisted night at Allison's house. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee and staring blankly at my phone, still reeling from what had happened the day before. That's when the first one came through. It was a text from Allison, short but loaded with intention. I meant what I said. You belong with me. I almost dropped the mug from my hand. I hadn't even had time to process everything she had tried to pull the night before, and now this. My blood began to simmer as I read the words over again, but I ignored it, putting my phone down as if it hadn't happened. I wasn't going to entertain this nonsense. Not today. But then, 5 minutes later, another message came in. I know you felt it too. I know you want me, Jason. My jaw clenched, and I put the phone face down on the table, trying to focus on anything else. The kids were at school, the house was quiet, and I should have been using this time to finalize more of my plans with Kate for the divorce. But Allison, relentless as ever, wouldn't let me. The next text came with a photo. I could feel my heart rate spike when I saw the preview on the screen. It was a shot of her, lying on her bed, completely naked, her body sprawled out in a way that was meant to entice, to provoke. Below the image was a simple message. "This is what you're missing." I stood up from the table, anger rising like a storm inside me. What the hell was she thinking? She hadn't just crossed the line, she'd obliterated it. And now, she wasn't just screwing with my head, she was pushing boundaries, trying to drag me into something I wanted no part of. But as I paced the kitchen, an idea started forming. A cold, calculated thought. I stopped and stared at the messages again. If Allison was willing to go this far, then maybe I could use this. Maybe I could turn this twisted obsession of hers into something that would finally tip the scales in my favor. I knew Vanessa. I knew how fragile her sense of control was, how easily her perfect image would crack when faced with betrayal from those closest to her. And what could hurt her more than discovering that her own sister was throwing herself at her husband while she was entangled with Ryan? It was the kind of personal chaos that could blow their relationship apart. Perfect. I made the decision right there. I was done playing defensively. It was time to go on the offensive, to turn the tables on both of them. I scrolled back through the messages, saving the photos and the explicit texts Allison had been sending me. I didn't stop to consider the fallout or what it would do to their relationship. I couldn't afford to care about that now. I had one goal in mind, to bring Vanessa down piece by piece, and this was a weapon too powerful to ignore. Once I had everything I needed, I opened a new message thread and selected Vanessa's number. I attached the most damning photos, along with a few of the more explicit messages, the ones where Allison made it crystal clear that she wanted me. And then, without hesitation, I hit send. I leaned back in the chair, watching the message go through, feeling a dark satisfaction creeping in. The damage was done. There was no taking it back. Now all I had to do was wait and watch the fallout unfold. Hours passed. I busied myself with meetings, working out the logistics of the divorce with Kate. She was preparing the paperwork, making sure my assets were airtight, and that Vanessa wouldn't walk away with anything more than what I allowed her to. My mind kept drifting back to the messages I had sent, wondering when Vanessa would see them and how she would react. It wasn't until late afternoon that my phone buzzed again. This time it was Vanessa. "What the actual FK, Jason?" I grinned at the screen, already imagining the scene on her end. I pictured her sitting at her desk, scrolling through the photos, her anger boiling as she realized what her sister had done. I could almost hear the sound of her world crashing down around her. Before I could reply, another message came in. "You seriously think this is funny? You think forwarding this to me is some kind of sick joke?" I typed back quickly, keeping my response as simple as possible. "Ask your sister. She seems to think we belong together." The silence that followed was delicious. I could feel the chaos brewing from miles away, like the calm before a storm. Vanessa, for all her cunning, had no defense for this. And I knew Allison, desperate and unhinged, wouldn't be able to lie her way out of it either. The phone rang a minute later, and it was Vanessa, calling now, fury evident even before she spoke. "How dare you send me those disgusting photos?" she spat, her voice shaking with rage. "How could you even let her get close enough to do this?" "I didn't let her do anything," I said calmly. "You should talk to your sister about her little obsession. She's been throwing herself at me since day one." There was a pause, and I could hear her struggling to form a response. "You're lying," she said finally, though her voice lacked the confidence she usually had. "Allison would never." "Oh, she would." I cut in. "She did. And I got the proof right there on your phone." Vanessa was silent for a long moment. I could almost feel the weight of her fury, the disbelief warring with the reality that she couldn't deny. "When did this start?" she asked finally, her voice quieter now, seething but under control. "It doesn't matter when it started," I said. "What matters is that while you were sneaking around with Ryan, your sister was plotting her own betrayal." Her breath came hard through the phone. I could imagine her pacing back and forth, trying to make sense of this new layer of chaos, trying to figure out who to be more angry at, me, Allison, or herself. "This isn't over, Jason," she finally said, her voice filled with venom. "I'll deal with her. But you and I? We're not done." I almost laughed. "Oh, we're done, Vanessa. You just don't realize it yet." She hung up before I could say anything more. I put my phone down and leaned back in my chair, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction wash over me. The pieces were falling into place, and now I had set Vanessa and Allison against each other. That was all I needed for them to destroy themselves from the inside. Later that evening, I got another message, this time from Allison. It was short, almost panicked. "Jason, what did you do?" "Vanessa just called me. She's furious." I stared at the message, a smile creeping up my face. I didn't bother responding. Let them sort it out. Let them tear each other apart. Vanessa's perfect little world was crumbling, and she had no idea how far I was willing to go to make sure she didn't come out of this unscathed. I had waited for this moment, the moment where I could finally start taking control of my life again, where I wasn't the one being lied to, manipulated, or played. The courthouse loomed in front of me like a final battleground, the place where everything would either be resolved or burned down completely. I wasn't nervous anymore. In fact, a strange calm had settled over me as I walked toward the steps, knowing that every piece of this carefully constructed plan was about to pay off. I had been patient, methodical, and now it was time for the final move. Kit was already waiting inside, sharp and prepared, like always. She greeted me with a nod, her face showing the confidence I needed in this moment. "Are you ready?" she asked, flipping through her neatly organized files. I caught a glimpse of Vanessa's name on several documents. The evidence, the reports, everything was there perfectly lined up. I nodded. "I'm more than ready." This wasn't just a divorce hearing. This was the culmination of weeks of unraveling every lie, every betrayal, until there was nothing left but the bare truth. And that truth wasn't going to be kind to Vanessa. Inside the courtroom, Vanessa sat with her own attorney, looking every bit the part of someone trying to maintain control. But I could see the cracks, the tension in her face. She wasn't the same unshakable woman who had always known how to manipulate a situation. Not anymore. The affair with Ryan, her deteriorating relationship with Allison, the exposure of her double life, it had all chipped away at her, piece by piece. And today, it was going to come crashing down. The proceedings started with a flurry of formalities. The judge addressed both sides, laying out the terms of the divorce and the custody arrangement for Liam and Sophie. Vanessa's lawyer tried to argue for joint custody, but I had prepared for this moment with Kate. We had an airtight case. Vanessa's affair, her erratic behavior, and of course, the explosive fallout between her and Allison. Every little detail, every slip-up she had made, had been cataloged, building a wall of evidence she couldn't break through. When it was time to present our case, Kate stood and calmly laid out the evidence. She didn't waste a word, hitting every critical point. Vanessa's neglect, her affair with Ryan, the questionable decision she had made regarding the children's care during that time. There was no drama, just cold, hard facts laid out with precision. Vanessa sat still, her eyes flickering with anger and something else, panic. She knew it was over. But the real blow came when Kate introduced the evidence of the rift between Vanessa and Allison. Emails, texts, and phone records that we had gathered in the aftermath of the chaos I had caused by sending those explicit photos. The judge listened carefully as Kate painted a picture of a woman whose personal life was unraveling to the point of instability, her own sister no longer able to vouch for her. I glanced at Vanessa. She was gripping the arms of her chair, her jaw clenched so tightly I thought she might crack her teeth. She had underestimated me, and now she was paying for it. As the day wore on, the reality of the situation became clearer. The judge leaned in my favor. Full custody of Liam and Sophie, control over our shared assets, and Vanessa was left with little more than the personal belongings in her name. My business was untouched, safe from her reach. Every dollar I had moved, every asset I had protected, stayed with me. Kate had seen to that, and now the plan was working flawlessly. Vanessa's lawyer made one final, half-hearted attempt to argue for a financial settlement, but the judge was unmoved. The affair, the lies, the instability, it had all worked in my favor. Vanessa wouldn't be taking a significant chunk of what I had built, and more importantly, she wouldn't be walking away with my children. I kept my face impassive as the judge delivered the final verdict. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The moment when I would emerge from this mess with everything I had fought for intact. Vanessa's gaze met mine from across the room, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. She knew she had lost, and there was nothing she could do to change it. After the hearing, I walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sunlight. I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Kate joined me, offering a rare smile. "You did it," she said, closing her briefcase with a snap. "It's over." "It's over," I repeated, feeling the words settle into place. But there was no elation, no triumph in the way I had expected. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that I had fought and I had won. Vanessa would feel the consequences of her actions long after this. Her affair with Ryan had already caused a ripple effect. Word had spread through her law firm about her personal scandals, and they were distancing themselves from her, protecting their own reputation. Her once impressive career was faltering, and from what I had heard through Kate's connections, her position at the firm was on thin ice. As for Ryan, the man she had risked everything for, his real estate firm had come under federal investigation for fraud. The cracks had been there for a while, but now they were widening, and it was only a matter of time before he was forced to face the consequences. I had heard through the grapevine that Ryan had started pulling away from Vanessa, not wanting her drama to mix with his own. She had bet everything on him, and now she had lost it all. That evening, I returned home. The house was quiet, peaceful. Liam and Sophie were with their grandparents for the weekend, so I had time to myself. Time to reflect on what had been a long, grueling process. I sat down in the living room, looking around at the space I had once shared with Vanessa, the memories we had built here. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel the anger, the betrayal gnawing at me. It was over. Really over. Vanessa was out of my life, and so was Allison, who had disappeared after everything went down between them. I didn't need to hear from either of them again. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, and I glanced at it, expecting some routine follow-up from Kate. But it wasn't her. It was a message from Vanessa, simple and to the point. "You've won, Jason. Congratulations." I stared at the words, but I didn't reply. There was no point. The battle had been fought, and the result was clear. She knew it, and so did I. I set the phone down and leaned back into the couch, feeling the calm spread through me. There was no more revenge to plan, no more secrets to uncover. From now on, my focus was clear: my kids, my business, and rebuilding the life I deserved. As the house settled into the quiet of the night, I closed my eyes and let myself finally breathe. This was victory, and it was mine. Thank you for listening to this story. Subscribe to the channel, put a like under the video, and write a comment about how you like this story.